Today we are working on our first day of solving linear equations. So to start off, there's a few things we need to know. So to solve an equation means to determine the value of that variable that makes the statement true. Then we check our solved value by plugging it into both sides of the equation and seeing if they have the same result. There's a couple things to note when working with equations. So we know equations are made of variables as well as numbers. So to solve for that unknown, so the variable, we're required to rearrange the equation. And in order to rearrange the equation, we must know this second bullet. So we always do the opposite. So if there's adding going on and we want to rearrange it, we do subtracting. Likewise, if there's multiplying going on and we want to rearrange it, we must divide, and vice versa. If there's dividing, we multiply, and if there's subtracting, we add. And it's important to know that whatever is done to one side of the equation, you have to do to the other side. I will now demonstrate the points we just talked about by way of an example. So up here, I've just written down a little summary of what we just learned to keep in mind for when we're solving this equation. So I'm now going to get into what we just talked about by way of an example. And I've created a little remember list up top, which just summarizes the two main findings that we determined from the points before. So example 1, solve the following equations. Here we have x plus 2 equals 10. We know solving the equation means figuring out what x actually equals. So first, let's do the opposite. So as you can see here, plus 2 is what's in the way right now of x being by itself. So we need to rearrange so that x is by itself. So the opposite of plus 2 is negative 2. So we subtract 2 from this side to get x by itself. And we know by our step 2 here, whatever we do to one side, we must do to the other side. So we can't just subtract 2 from this side, we also have to subtract 2 from this side. So our next line becomes x plus 2 minus 2, and we do the same to the other side, so 10 minus 2. Now, as we know, 2 minus 2 cancels out, and we're left with x equals 8. And that's our final answer, solving the linear equation. So this question is a little bit more involved. As you can see, we have a negative 3 and a 2 that are preventing our x from being on its own. So in order to determine which one we rearrange first or which one we get rid of first, the 2 or the negative 3, we have to use SAMDEB. And as you see, that's actually BEDMAS backwards. And SAMDEB tells us what order to get rid of things when we're rearranging. So BEDMAS tells us what order to approach things in when we're solving, and SAMDEB tells us what order to approach things in when we're rearranging or isolating for a variable. So subtraction and addition, we need to tackle those first. Let's get rid of this negative 3. We do that by adding 3 to both sides. So 2x minus 3 plus 3 equals negative 15 plus 3, because we have to do it to both sides. And then we can simplify this because these cancel out. And then here we are left with negative 12. And now our final part of SAMDEB is multiplication and division. So now we can get rid of the 2. And to do that, we do the opposite. So since it's being multiplied, we're going to divide both sides by 2. And these will cancel out. So we're left with x equals negative 6. Now that we have a few examples of solving equations, I want to introduce what a check is. So a check is basically what you do to figure out if the number you found down here is correct. So a check should work such that after plugging in your variable, the left side of the equation should equal the right side of the equation. So all we do is this. We separate our left side, which we know is 2x minus 3, and we write our right side, which we know is just negative 15, and then we work through them both. So we now know that x is actually negative 6, so we plug it right in, and obviously the right side still stays the same at negative 15 because there's nothing to plug in. And now we go about the problem. So 2 times negative 6 is negative 12, minus 3, and it's negative 15. So since our left side equals our right side, they both turned out to be negative 15, our check is complete and we know our variable that we found was correct. Our final example here is x divided by 3 equals negative 4, and we need to solve for our variable x. So the first thing we need to do is look at SAMGUD to figure out what we need to get rid of first. So do we have any subtraction or addition? Nope. Do we have any multiplication or division? Yes, we have a dividing by 3 over here, so that's the first thing we'll get rid of to isolate for x. So again, we need to do the opposite of dividing by 3, so we multiply by 3, and we need to do it to both sides. So x divided by 3, we're multiplying that by 3, and we're also multiplying the other side by 3. And now we know that these two will cancel out, and we're just left with x equals negative 12. So now let's go ahead and do a check to make sure we solve for the right answer. So left side is x divided by 3, and right side is negative 4. So let's plug in x is negative 12 divided by 3, which is negative 4. So our left side and our right side are the same, so we can include left side equals right side. Our answer is correct.